logistics sector, the changes which has come in is primarily because of the digitization. More than anything, today the concept of multimodalism has come into that, which is really good, and the cost is going to come down tremendously.
I think the best changes that I've seen is in the approach of the government and the government agencies. Pre-pandemic, some of the changes that we wanted to drive with the government, especially in terms of digitalization, automation, were going at a very, very snail pace. But in the last 2 years, I think the government has walked right in front of the private sector, and they've been far ahead of us.
Well, number one is building resilience in your supply chain more strategically, right? The traditional way of looking at supply chain was always solving for the lowest cost, but I think that thinking has gonna completely changed.
So what is happening is that a lot more demand is coming up for freshness and hygiene in food, where supply chain has a big role to play. So this is a very fast growing industry, right? It's growing at almost 20% year on year. One thing that happens from technology side is to assess the demand, right? So the demand sensing has become a big area.
Post-COVID, customers have been getting online. Good thing is that tier 3, tier 4 cities are also coming in and shopping online. So that's a major scope that we see, and we want to cater to that as soon as possible.
Across the board, supply chains are broken. So now people are talking about building resilience, building flexibility, and these weren't the questions which people were to answer. Supply chains historically were kind of geared towards optimizing cost, optimizing throughput. And I think the focus has completely changed to flexibility, to resilience.
So the biggest change is that we are investing in technology, we are investing in people, and that's more important, because at the end of the day, all the technology is run by your people only.
The key trend, I would say, the supply chain has become very popular. The key topics, even the politicians don't miss out to talk about the supply chain. Right. Second, I see around the supply chain is getting away from the old legacy system of straight line, going into network.
I think if I think at a macro level, most companies are moving from being internally focused to being externally focused, keeping customer at the center of everything. So how am I able to serve my customer better?
We have learned a lot in pandemic time. Now trying to utilize that to the benefit of the industry. As of now, it has actually changed the perspective that we had as logisticians towards our own self. Indian logisticians have kept the Indian economy going even during pandemic, when the entire world was struggling.
Well, I think there's a few things, but I noticed that companies are actually going back a little bit to the fundamentals to really understand. So some of the largest companies that we work with are looking back and see what's the financial performance of their suppliers, where you take it for granted because you don't have credit risk with them, right? You're buying goods from them. So in theory, you don't have that risk, but they realize that there's actually a lot more risk and trying to understand the financial health of their suppliers in order to ensure that the goods and the services get delivered over a contractual period of time.
Black Swan events obviously create a major shift in how people perceive things, how people reflect on things, and then accordingly take relevant actions, right? One of the major shifts that I've seen is, for example, in retail, stores are no longer just your stores, they become distribution centers.
If you look at financially or operationally, all of these sectors has changed. The content or extent may be debated, but the intent cannot be debated. Intent is to become self-reliance, is to become Atmanirbhar, and is also to become leader in their segment.
So we have seen that in the multimodal area, it has been an area of interest for the supply chain industry for the longest time. But especially in the last 2 to 3 years, what we have seen that due to the initiatives of the government and a lot of focus on the Gati Shakti program and etc., there is increased interest on behalf of the industry to see what more they can do.
Over the last few years, we've seen that people from supply chain are now becoming CEOs and COOs of the world. So that's a paradigm shift which I see into supply chain.
The first change that we saw was after GST coming in, when the consolidation started happening. So the concept of regional hubs went away, and then the consolidation aggregation started happening. What we see today is, people, rather than holding their inventory, they're trying to follow the JIT norms, go as close to the customer.
One thing what we are very clearly seeing is that there's a lot of technology adoption which is happening now. Now what we've seen is that now a lot of companies coming together, building large platform related plays and trying to solve for solutions, right? And hence multimodal also comes into play.
The last 2 years, the world has faced a lot of challenges because of the outbreak. And the outbreak has also taught us many things. During COVID, what happened, we could not get many of our spares. There were many supply chain challenges, out of which upkeep of the machine or keep the machine running was a really challenging one. During this challenge, this 3D printing technology came as a savior to us.
In the COVID times, we've realized the importance of getting manufactured these products. That is where 3D printing actually was a game changer.
I would say these times have given a pressure to think beyond whatever is possible in the 3D printing as well. So the industries have started thinking about using 3D printing, 3D printed part, which can definitely help them to cover up the issues of the supply chain challenges where the lead times are really high.
We are seeing a lot of integration of multiple parts into a single part. How to make the entire integrated part turn around very quickly and also improve its strength and structure and weight, and overall look at the efficiency of making the part. So this is something which is happening in the last 2-3 years.
If I see last 2 to 3 years, especially due to COVID, I think in the entire world the supply chain has been disrupted. Supply chain is now well supported by a technology. That's the biggest change I see in last 2-3 years. Use of AI in the supply chain process to make a smart supply chain. That's the feature.
One key trend in the logistics trade that we've seen is that the time definitiveness of things have changed. Whatever is essential requires to be delivered faster. What is less essential requires more efficient planning. Technology has come front and center of how logistics is being planned.
So the biggest shift is the mindset. Now the customers are not thinking as a customer, just a client who is consuming the services. They're ready to invest money. They have this VC-like mindset, right, where they want to invest in technology. They're ready to accept that technology can fail.
There are many changes, whether in terms of technology, whether in terms of sourcing, whether you talk about the distribution model. Supply chain risk, which was always taking a back seat. Now companies have realized anytime any risk can be there and you should be prepared for that.
One thing I can see the trend that has changed is basically the awareness about the maintenance of cold chain. During this period is something we realized that there is no kind of an escape for us. We have to ensure that certain drugs which are very life critical or life threatening, or vaccines basically, you have to maintain the cold chain throughout the chain of supply.
So all through COVID, the one trend that I've clearly seen is the adoption for frozen foods. A lot of people, because of their limited mobility during the COVID years, it was years, I forget, not months, they were limited in terms of getting fresh supplies. So a lot of people experimented with frozen foods, and as a result realized that frozen is actually the cleanest way of preserving any food item.
Few things definitely changed. One is the awareness of costs. What you see as same month last year may not necessarily be the trend for this month. The demands have, October is supposed to be a good month for the food industry, but then it's not peaked as much as it did.